Elijah Martin, fresh off a national championship with the Florida Gators, is in the NBA draft. We'll see where he ends up getting picked, if he ends up getting picked at all. His stock, despite his success at school, all over the place from a second round pick, potentially undrafted. Riley, we are all very high on him here at Sleepers Media. We had him at number 37 on our big board. I believe I was the high man on him at 28. He's a first round pick for me. The only one who had him there. You had him at 41. You were the second high man. Dion had him 43rd. Cart had him 47th. And Greg had him 49th. Let's speak to his strengths because there's a lot of things he does well. You don't play on two different Final Four teams if you're not a valuable contributor. So, what allowed him to be that? What are his strengths of his game?
So at the college level, he showed a lot of versatility on offense. Like he played on and off ball, was a decent secondary playmaker, good at getting to the rim. If you look at his shot chart, it's all pretty much like dunks and threes. Or shots at or maybe not dunks, but he had plenty of those. But I would say shots at the rim or threes, which trends very favorably just with where the sport is going, what they like in the NBA. But I think his biggest strength that should help him stick if he is to stick in the NBA is the point of attack defense. I thought that was the real game changer for really this whole Gators team. They were the sixth team nationally in KenPom after being in the 90s last year, and I think so much of that can be chalked up to what Alijah Martin can do on ball. I think he's really heady off ball as well, like just very good instincts and timing to pick off passes and even like pick the pockets of like think about he's playing against an opponent who grabs down on an offensive rebound. He's really good at picking the pocket of someone in that position as well. So it's like that's the skill that should give him the floor to get him onto an NBA court.
Mhm.
But I would say some of the my hesitations with not having him as a first rounder is just I'm not exactly sure what he's going to do from an offensive perspective in the NBA, despite the success he had on that end at the college level.
Yeah, he was such a high-end role player slash secondary option in college, right? The FAU team that made the Final Four, he was one of the stars, like him and John L. Davis, Vlad Golden, right? But John L. Davis was more of the perimeter scorer. Elijah was really good number two at Florida. Walter Clayton was the perimeter scorer, and he was a really good number two, number three at times, next to Will Richard, depending on how Will Richard played. But defensively, he's phenomenal, right?
Hmm.
The weaknesses of his game, I think, though, are just he was essentially a 6'2" small forward.
Yeah,
An FAU
right.
team, he was a 6'2" power forward. And so projecting him now to be a true backcourt player in the NBA with the size is just a little more difficult.
That's exactly what you took the words out of my mouth. That was kind of what I was trying to communicate by saying like the shot chart was pretty efficient this past year at Florida, but he was really effective at slashing against college guys who he was bigger and more athletic than. And I just wonder like if his lack of self creation, he's not really like a break you down off the dribble kind of guy. He got to the rim a lot on cuts. And I just wonder if you're going to play him at the two, which is where I think you have to at the NBA, is there going to be a team that like I guess can find a way to maximize some of those limitations or cover it up.
It'll be interesting to see because he played much bigger than his size, right, at college, both at FAU and Florida. But that's still really small for, especially for the NBA, right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
playing big means you're 6'5", 6'6", which is your typical two man in the NBA. So it'll be interesting to see how his career pans out. Essentially, where he ends up on draft night. We have 7 different categories we're going to get into for Elijah Martin, as we have for all of our top 80 prospects here on the Sleepers Media YouTube channel. The first one, Riley was going to pick one word to describe Elijah Martin and his game. You're going to give your word. I'm going to give mine. We'll go from there. So, what is your word for Elijah Martin?
I said winner, and that's because again, it ties into like if he sticks in the NBA, it's going to be that defense, and it's going to be him making winning plays, doing the dirty work, and using his versatility to his advantage.
I too went with winner.
Oh, look at us in lockstep.
That one of the reasons I'm so high on him is because you do not win at the level he is won at consistently at multiple stops without doing things that contribute to winning, right? Like you don't just stumble into being one of the guys on FAU's Final Four team and one of the guys on Florida's national championship team without having winning habits. Defensively, the things he brings, what he brings you offensively in transition, what he has done from three, the help side defense, I think is really good. The understanding of how to make an impact without the ball, I think is a really high level. Like his basketball IQ was really high. And he's a
Hmm.
very, very mature person, very mature player. I think that comes through and has contributed to winning. Do you think he's more likely to hit his ceiling or his floor in the NBA?
I said floor, and part of this is just because that's the reality with a lot of these second round picks. It doesn't mean I like don't believe in him at all. I just think like most NBA teams are going to want their two guard to have a little self creation ability, and that's where I'm most skeptical of him. Even if he's able to create, make stuff happen, or get easy shots at the rim off ball, I think some of the limitations ultimately have him hitting his floor.
I have him hitting his ceiling, and I think all your points are very valid. But this again comes into, as we've talked about a number of these, what is your ceiling and what is your floor? What is the best version of you? What is the worst version?
Hmm.
I think the best version of him is kind of who he was in college, where he is a high quality role player. And I would bet on him being that more than I would him not making an NBA roster or
Yeah,
being
yeah.
out of the league pretty quickly. And I think that's the floor for guys who are undersized and don't have guaranteed contracts.
I'm with you. Yeah, I think that it kind of ties into the next category for where he'll be in 5 years. I keep going back and forth between bench and G League, but I'm guessing you have him on a bench somewhere.
I do have him on a bench somewhere. We got to pick from different options for all these guys, from All NBA, All Star, starter. They're on the bench in 5 years. They're in the G League, playing overseas, or hosting a podcast. I did go bench. Where did you have him?
I ultimately landed with G League, but I feel like I'm contradicting myself because I have him 41st on my big board. It's just like I love Elijah Martin and I don't want him to be in the G League, but I think that's probably the most likely outcome is he's a two-way guy or he's still maybe 5 years from now trying to make it work and to stick on an NBA roster.
I could see that. I like where he ends up is going to matter a lot.
Hmm.
Where he ends up is going to matter a lot, and the opportunity presented to him is going to matter a lot. If he gets drafted by a team like the Thunder, let's say, who winning franchise but just has a ton of picks, there's a good chance he may end up just running into a logjam of roster he can't crack into,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But if he ends up with a team like the Suns, who just need bodies and need cheap players who can contribute, that's a pretty easy path for him
Hmm.
to get on the court sooner. I do not have the Suns as my best fit for him. But what do you have as the best team fit for where Elijah Martin could go?
I have the Lakers. I would like the Lakers to take a swing on him in the second round.
I have the Spurs.
You want to explain the Spurs or you want me to go Lakers first?
Winning player, high basketball IQ, still very Spursy to me.
Even without Pop?
Even without Pop, but like you're going to need first off, Wembanyama, you kind of can do whatever you want to around him, and you're going to be successful. But I think Elijah Martin being able to do the number of things that he does in a role is a great fit for a team that is going to have established stars. Right,
Hmm.
Wembanyama is a star. Dylan Harper looks like they're going to draft the number two. You project to be a star. Stephon Castle looks like he's on star trajectory. De'Aaron Fox is that. So how can you surround them with low maintenance guys who are going to contribute? Elijah
Hmm.
Martin to me is the epitome of that low maintenance guy who's going to play good defense, do what you need him to do, and help contribute to winning without needing the ball in his hands or plays drawn for
Right, right. Yeah, I said Lakers because some of the same things you said with winning player, makes all the hustle plays, etc., low maintenance. But I also kind of thought like, how do you cover up for a 6'2" guard who doesn't really create for himself? You play him with a 6'7" point guard who will create everything with Luca. And I
him.
even would say more specifically, like going back and watching that Lakers Timberwolves playoff series, I thought the Lakers defense was like truly abominable for large stretches.
Yes.
And whether it was Luca, whether it was Reeves struggling to stay in front of their man, being late on rotations and making life tough on like Rui Hachimura or whoever they had playing at the five, like Martin to me would have a tailor-made role to just be to like play off of Luca and LeBron, cut, catch lobs, dunk, shoot spot up threes, and guard the opponent's best point guard. And it might take some time for him to figure it out. And I don't know, like, but if they strike gold, you're looking at like a 1 or 2 year window with LeBron before he's probably like not quite LeBron anymore. To where you if you want to make this Luca LeBron pairing work or make the most out of it, you got to get a title in the next 2 years. I think there's a good chance. Well, I shouldn't say good chance since I have him sitting his floor and said he's going to be in the G League, but I think there's at least a chance that he is one of those the just like his age can work in his favor here. He'll be 24 by the time the season starts.
Yeah, which you are who you are almost at that point. There's
Mhm.
limited progression available. It'll be interesting to see how he is treated because the age and the size are working against him from a
Yep.
draft perspective. What about his superlative? We're giving these again to all of our top 80 prospects, yearbook like superlatives for this rookie class. So in this rookie class, Alijah Martin is most likely to do what?
To get Mac McClunged into the dunk contest every year, where it's like, let's say Elijah Martin is on the back end of someone's bench somewhere, or he's in the G League, and it's gonna be like he gets the call every single year, like, hey, we want it's time for you to you get your 15 minutes of fame, come show out in the dunk contest, see if you can match Mac McClung's titles. Let's get it going.
I don't hate that. He'd be good at that too.
I agree.
He'd be good at that. I don't hate that. I went with he's most likely to be a role player on a contender on a like early deal, the first like 3 years um of his career, despite being a second round pick or undrafted. Like
Mhm.
basically the Fred VanVleet path.
I
Like,
like that. I think that would yeah, that would be a great trajectory, honestly, for him.
yeah, I mean, I love his game. I love him as a player. I think he's going to contribute where he ends up, quite frankly. And
Mhm.
I, I, I just see him like coming off the bench like for the Pacers in 2 years, and he's feeling something similar like T.J. McConnell, where it's like he's giving us valuable 10 minutes.
That actually might be the best team fit in terms of like development
Yeah,
um for Martin. Like that's really easy to envision just watching like the way the Pacers play defense this whole playoff series to envision him being one of those guards. Like
yeah,
I would not have thought TJ McConnell would play a decade in the NBA. Like who's to say Elijah
no,
Martin can if he gets the right situation. So
no. Yeah, now that might be best case scenario for him, but again, I'm leaning more towards best case scenario. Who is your best case player comp? If everything works out for him, what does that look like?
mine was D'Anthony Melton, another guy who
Yep.
is just has made his living in the league on point of attack defense. And I think even watching the way like they play both on and off ball defense, just they look it's very reminiscent. So
I went with Lou Dort,
ooh.
undrafted guy, cutting his
Hmm.
teeth defensively. His offensive game has grown, and he got paid by the Thunder because of that. Proven contributor, starter on a winning team that's going to the NBA Finals.
And they're like doppelgangers from like a physical build perspective.
Yes, just very stocky, very
Yeah.
built.
That's a
What
good
about
that's a good one.
what about worst case scenario?
Do you remember Shaquille Harrison, who played at Tulsa, was like
Yep,
the AAC Player of the Year, had a cup of coffee in the league. He was
yep,
another one of those dudes who was just known for his point of attack defense. Offense was never like consistent enough to stick. But he was in and out of the NBA and G League, and hopefully made at least decent money for him for his sake. So I could see if it doesn't work out for Elijah Martin, it'd be something like that where every once in a while he'll have those seasons where he'll get like 40 games played in the NBA, maybe like 2 or 3 years, but then primarily like a G League guy.
yeah. I went with another Florida guard. Went with Scotty Lewis.
That wasn't even that long ago. I completely forgot he existed.
Yep, a supreme athlete, solid defender. I don't think he's Elijah Martin level defender, but solid
Hmm.
defender. Got to the Hornets, played a little bit for the Hornets, and then spent a couple years in the G League, and he's now playing in the Canadian Elite Basketball League for the Niagara River Lions.
Jeez. Gosh, like the Hornets really do just like look at 24/7 sports player rankings and just pick one in the second
He
round.
was he was a top 10 prospect coming out of high school, and I blame Mike White for Scotty Lewis's failures. To be quite honest.
I was gonna say I had a joke queued up. I was gonna say, wait, Ralph, who was Scotty Lewis's coach again?
Yep,
Tee you up for that.
yep. It didn't work out. The pieces did not come into place for him. I think the pieces are more in place for Elijah Martin, but like you got to a point with Scotty Lewis where like what he did was not good enough. What he did well was not good enough to play in the NBA.
Yeah, makes
I
sense.
think that's the fear of Elijah Martin is what you do well just isn't quite good enough given your size. And
Hmm.
6'2". But I would lean more towards the Lou Dort than Scotty Lewis. I hope anyway.
Hmm.